Two. Hello, welcome to RSP Podcast with me, Raj Parmar, and I'm here with George Kefford, a very interesting young man. I can actually call you a young man because you're younger than me, who last year walked across the Middle East when he was only 17. How are you, man?
Yeah, I'm doing really well. How's it going with you?
Yeah, not too bad, not too bad. So where are you based at the moment?
I'm based in The Hague in the Netherlands at the moment. I'm studying my degree here at Leiden University. It's like based in Middle Eastern studies. But yeah, sort of trying to keep occupied during this whole situation we're in.
Yeah, so you've also got a book published, am I right?
Yes, yeah, I self-published that a few months ago about my walk across the Middle East, and yeah, it's going all right. It's a few sales here and there.
Few sales here and
Yeah,
there. That's what I like to hear. Well, that's what's it called? Sorry.
it's called The Holy Land.
Well, sorry, I think you might have cut out a little bit there.
Uh, Sorry, it's called Walking the Holy Land.
Walking the Holy Land. So give us a bit of background. Where are you from? Why did you start adventuring?
Yeah, so I was actually born in the UK, not too far away from Windsor, and so I spent 3 years in the UK and then moved to Germany, and then from Germany to Australia, where I did all my high schooling and everything, and yeah, basically ever since I was a really really young kid, I love the outdoors. I love discovering new places and everything like that, and got these memories in Germany. We'd walk to the top of this sort of local hill, and we get a hot chocolate when we're at the top and things like that, and that's what gave birth to my love for exploration. Yeah.
Awesome. So I was looking at your website, and so what on your website there's 8 adventures written there. Tell us about those in chronological order, and then we'll go into talk about your walk through the Middle East.
Sure. So the first adventure to kick it off was a walk across North Stradbroke Island. It's the second largest sand island in the world. I mean, it's not that big. It's only about 40 kilometers in length, but it was that first step in the door. Uh, there's a website called thenextchallenge.org, and they funded me for that trip. I was really lucky to get the backing of a guy called Tim Moss, and so that was the first one. The second one was called Peak to Pacific, and that was when me and one of my mates, we walked from the tallest mountain in southeast Queensland to the sea. So I'm basically going from high elevation to low elevation. And that was about 5 days, 150 kilometers ish. And then after that, Brisbane River expeditions. So that was walking, cycling, and paddling the entire length of the Brisbane River, which is about 300 kilometers, give or take. And then after that, that was when I sort of wanted to go a bit more international. So I signed up for a school trip to go to the Indian Himalayas. It was a bit of trekking, a bit of volunteering, sort of quite a cliche middle class high school business. And after that, a paddling trip across Fraser Island, which is the largest sand island in the world. Me and a mate, 2 kayaks, really good fun. Fishing at night, real nice sunsets and everything, living the dream basically. And then yeah, the Middle Eastern walk, and then I've done a few trips since then, like walk across the Netherlands when I moved here, and walks for 7 days around Malta. But yeah,
Man, you're 18. This is insane. Where do you find the time?
just school holidays, and I had a bit of time. So in Australia, school finishes in November, and I knew I was going to come to Europe for university. So I had 7 months, sort of like a half gap year,
Oh.
where I did the walk and then did some work in Australia to save up to come here.
Wow. I mean, like I said, even myself, I started traveling. I mean, going crazy when I was traveling when I was about 19. When I was 18, I was interested in much more stuff I can't talk about on the podcast. But what do you, I mean, what do you do in your spare time other than this? I mean, what else do you fit into your spare time? Because you
Yeah.
must have things 18-year-olds do.
No, well, I love reading. I spend a lot of time reading, watching, documentaries on YouTube and things. I love Vice documentaries, and they're brilliant.
Great, great.
And then also, like, I mean, I'm not too dissimilar from the average teenager. Like, I've got an Xbox. I love playing Call of Duty and stuff like that. So no, I'm a normal teenager with a strange pastime.
Well, I mean, it's awesome that you've got into it early, and I think like getting into it early will, like you said. I mean, when we got in contact when you were speaking, that you want to make a career out of this, and I think getting it into it early is obviously the most important thing in that.
Yeah, for sure.
So where like what? Go on, let's talk in the Middle East. Why did you just start to go in the Middle East?
Yeah, well, I studied in modern history in senior school. We studied the Israel-Palestine conflict, and I found it fascinating. And all of my assignments, we could like choose an area of the world or some sort of place in the world that we'd do the assignment on, and every single assignment was the Middle East. It was Gamal Abdel Nasser in Egypt. It was the Kurdish independence movement, Israel-Palestine. That's what really got me fascinated in the Middle East. And then, hearing stories about people like Richard Francis Burton and yeah, Levison Woods as well, and Lawrence of Arabia. Those were the sort of the my idols in sort of getting into the Middle East. But I just, yeah, that and then the passion for exploration is just mixing together, and you got to walk.
There we go. There we go. I mean, I'm actually very similar. Of course, all of those I did history myself as at university, so all of those figures were massive inspirations to me as well. You read much of Wilfred Thesiger as well.
Yes,
He's
yes,
also very good. Very interesting story about him, how he
yeah.
he famously fell out with his Bedouin guides who left him in the desert.
Yes.
So
And
what?
it's reading about his experience with camels that makes me really, really scared about doing like a big, like proper desert expedition and using camels. It gives me nightmares.
I can say as well, because I mean, if they do not like you, they do not like you. I've been around a few angry camels in my time, and they do get scary.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So go on, let's go on. Let's start off. Where did you start in the route?
So I started. So I flew into Tel Aviv and then got the train up to Akka, which is just north of Haifa in Israel. And from there, I walked down to Nazareth, and then after Nazareth, crossed into the West Bank around Jenin, and then from Jenin, I was following a trail called the Masa Ibrahim. There's a guy called Leon McCarron, and he walked, I think, part or most of that on one of his walks in the Middle East, and so that was the inspiration for that. And then got to Jerusalem, crossed the border into Jordan, and then from the Jordan River border crossing, followed the Jordan Highlands down south through Karak and Petra and eventually Wadi Rum, and eventually reached Aqaba.
So wow, so what a route. So let's go a bit more in depth then as well, because so you started in Akka, which is north Israel. I actually, when I was there last year, I didn't get the chance to visit there. What's it like over there?
It's really, really interesting. It's a part of Israel that is actually still inhabited quite heavily by sort of pre 1948 Arabs. So the ones who didn't sort of flee into the West Bank or into the various diaspora communities around the world. So and Akka's got it's basically a huge mix between Christians, Muslims, the Druze, the Baha'i or something I think they're called, and then yeah they've got modern Jewish Israelis sort of living around the outskirts of the old city as well.
What's it feel like there? What's the tension there? Because I suppose we'll give a little bit of an explanation of those listening who don't know the situation.
Sure.
In 1948, the state of Israel was declared, and a lot of Arabs were forced to flee their home. Do you want to take it on from here?
Yeah, sure. And so after 48, there's a big war. Basically, all of Israel's neighbors invaded to basically try and keep, as they would see it, keep the Holy Land in Arab hands. And they some Arabs stayed, and in fact, those Arabs are very very interesting to talk to because they see all the benefits of living in Israel, like what we can describe in as a flawed but somewhat Western
Mm.
democratic state, but at the same time feel Palestinian. So practically, they prefer living in Israel. My good friend Taisir was telling me about this. They prefer living in Israel, but at heart, they're Palestinians.
Yeah, I think, and as well, this is actually really common. What I found across Israel as well, and is most people who haven't been think that there is just a straight Israeli-Palestinian divide, and it's not actually the case
Yeah.
because you get Arabs who, like you say, are comfortable living in Israel. They don't necessarily mind the Israeli state. Whereas you also get quite Orthodox Jewish people, and there's a sect, I'm not sure if you encountered them, but there's quite a common sect of Jewish people who actually don't recognize the state of Israel and do think
Yes.
it's.
Yeah. I mean, sort of the ultra Orthodox,
Yeah.
with these sort of really long side locks and everything. Because I think they think that Israel should not exist until the Messiah comes. I think that's what their view is
I
on it.
think I think you're correct. I think you're correct.
Yeah.
So obviously it is interesting, and it's really it's way more like you. I mean, I don't know about you, but personally, I kind of had a bit of a fixed idea when I went there.
Yeah.
But after spending about 2-3 days there, I mean that gets blown out the window, right?
Absolutely.
I spent 3 weeks there. But I moved around various cities, but I can imagine walking at eye level. You must have seen some crazy stuff.
Yeah, it was especially in the West Bank. One of the things that I saw quite often on my first day there were just dead dogs at the side of the road and stuff like that, and that really sort of in a way desensitized me to
Hmm.
death. It's very very natural and quite gruesome to encounter, but it's part of the human psyche. It's sort of built into us, and we live such sort of comfortable lives, and we're not exposed to that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, just out of interest, do you know what happened to those dogs, or?
I assume they were either run over or they were sick. That something that I don't particularly like about some of the places I've travelled to is the way they treat animals, and they're just sort of just wandering around eating trash and getting sort of hit by the locals and stuff like that. And I think that would probably be the reason. But yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, the only reason I ask is actually I found it quite strange is that I mean you must have noticed it as well that in Arabic culture there's quite sort of a love for cats.
Yes.
A lot of the Arabic people love cats. When I was in Israel, particularly in Jerusalem as well, the Jewish people seemed to hate cats, and they would always, like you say, they would kind of always throw things at them and try shoo them away. So I
Yeah.
mean, I don't know. I just thought that was an interesting point that you just brought up.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Israel versus Palestine is dogs versus
It
cats.
it runs deep. Yeah, I mean it
Yeah.
runs deep. Dogs versus cats, literally. It's I mean, like I said, I genuinely, whenever I talk to anyone about Israel and Palestine, I genuinely think it is a different world. I can't explain how different it is from any other place that I've been to.
Yeah, absolutely. It's fascinating. The difference is what
Hmm.
probably what draws me to it in a lot of ways.
Yeah, same. So sorry. So go on. Let's keep walking. You walk from Akka. Where did you end up next? Nazareth.
Yeah, so it was a 2 day walk to Nazareth. I stopped off at this town called Shafama in northern Israel. It's about halfway between Akka and Nazareth, and this was my first night on the trip. I hadn't organised any accommodation in this town, and so I was just walking around and sort of asking people, is there a hostel around here or something? But there wasn't. And eventually, I met this lady who spoke German, and I learned German in high school, so I was able to sort of try and figure out something, but nothing came of that. And so I went back to I saw a pharmacy, and when I was in India, my tour guide always said, if you want to find an English speaker, go to a pharmacy. So I went there and I met Taisir, who I mentioned earlier, and he just let me stay at his house, and just for that night, and that was that first introduction to that, really, really sort of warm, hospitable Arabic culture.
Which is so evident across all of the Middle East, isn't it? There's such welcoming friendship, and the way that they talk to you, they introduce themselves, and then 1 minute they're talking to you like they're really good friends with you.
Yeah, so it's incredible.
So nice, so different from where. Well, from the UK, maybe I'm not sure about Australia, but
yeah, same stuff, yeah.
Same stuff, yeah. I would have thought so. But let's keep going walking. After how long did you stay in Nazareth for?
I stayed in Nazareth for 2 nights, and I had one of the most sort of beautiful experiences of my life there. So in Nazareth, you've got the Church of the Annunciation, which is where the Virgin Mary was told that she would give birth to Jesus, and there's a big Catholic church there, and I went in it was probably around 7 p.m. and the church was completely empty. I tried to go in before, but there were tons of South American tourists, and it wasn't I wasn't vibing to it that much, and then it was completely empty, and I couldn't even see a priest inside. It was really, really beautiful. Then after that, I went to a kibbutz called Kibbutz Yisrael, which is very close to the West Bank border. I spent a night there. It was actually it was Friday night, so they had Shabbat dinner. So I had Shabbat dinner with a bunch of.
Explain to the people who don't know what are the kibbutzes, the communal farms.
Yeah, so Communal Farms, and that's what they started off at. As this one here is it's sort of a very because you have different ones. You have religious ones, and you have semi-religious ones, and atheist ones. And the atheist ones tend to be almost little sort of Marxist paradises. Like there's no sort of income system. You get everything for free, but you have to work to this sort of greater aim. And this particular kibbutz actually they manufactured swimming pool cleaning robots, interestingly. And it was Friday night, so we went up to the town hall, the kibbutz hall. A beautiful dinner, lots of cooked lamb and chicken, and obviously no pork.
Were these run by Israelis, or because you get people who come from all over the world to set these up, don't you?
Yeah, no. So this was a really old one. So it was run by Israelis, but the guy who sort of owns a little guest house in the kibbutz, he was South African Jewish. So, but yeah, they're from everywhere. It was predominantly sort of Ashkenazi, so white Jewish, European Jewish people, but there were lots of Yemenis and Persian Jews there as well.
Oh really? Oh wow, that's interesting actually. Although you do, I met once one or two Iranian Jewish people actually with their descendants from Iran, but it's quite unique, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, and especially the relationship between those two countries now. It's a shame that there is so much hostility between those two countries, and those people must have sort of split identity issues. It'd be
Yeah, I can't imagine. I was speaking to this guy. He was an Israeli activist. I met him actually when he did a speaking speech in Brighton, and he was saying that like how he would love, it's his dream to go back to where his grandparents used to live in Iran, but
Yeah,
he can't, and he doesn't even know if he will be able to in his lifetime. And
yeah,
even if he does, he's already done some military service, so that's going to come into a factor as well.
yeah. As they all must. Yeah, it's a shame.
It is a shame. It is a real shame, and you can actually think like what they could do in that region if they united, because I mean now actually Israel and Saudi Arabia aren't on terrible terms. They kind of work together as well.
Yeah, I think they both sort of just saw the threat of Iran, and sort of it's a very tactical partnership, the Saudis and the Israelis.
Yeah, yeah, completely. But continue. So after the kibbutz,
Yeah, so that's when I entered Palestine. I entered a city called Jenin in the very north of the country, and that was incredible. Like I'd heard basically all of my mates from high school said that you're probably going to lose your head as soon as you step into the West Bank. I mean, they were talking a bit of rubbish, but it was
yeah,
plenty of fun to
you
do.
hear these stories, don't you? It's absolute nonsense. It's such nonsense.
Yeah, and I got in, and it was only like a 5 kilometer walk from the border to the town Jenin, and 5 kilometers should take me an hour of walking, but it literally took me 4 hours just because I was stopped with like people sort of running out and giving me coffee and inviting me into their garage or their sort of clothes shop or whatever. They're really, really excited to see me, and incredibly peaceful. Everyone's sort of saying "Salaam alaikum" and been very, very kind, and yeah, it was completely changed what I thought Palestine would be.
Uh, yeah, I get what you mean. I mean, did I don't know about you, but don't you notice the difference when you cross that border straight away, when you cross that wall between Israel and Palestine? Don't
Yeah,
you, just as soon as you, I mean, just the feel of it, the smell, you just feel like you're in the Middle East. Whereas for me, Israel kind of reminded me a bit of Europe.
yeah, it is. It is
Yeah.
a little. It's basically a little Europe in the Middle East, and I think that's why lots of Palestinians are against it, because they see sort of a Western intruder, sort of like an extended arm of European imperialism in there. That's what they see as it as, and but yeah, as soon as I get the smells, the foods, everything, it sort of felt like the true Arabia, if you can say
That
that.
that was exactly my thought when I crossed that border. When I first went into Palestine, I went into Ramallah, and I was like, this was the Middle East I've come for.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's an incredible part of the world.
Yeah, really, really is. Let's continue. So you were, what was in Jenin?
Jenin, yeah. So from Jenin, I walked to a small village called Burkin, and it's got the third oldest church in the world, and it's the fifth holiest Christian site as well. It's a very small cave, and it's apparently it's where Jesus cured the lepers inside, and so they've got sort of lots of it's Greek Orthodox, so they've got all them icons around, and it was a really beautiful church. And then I met my host for the night at the church, a Christian called Osama, and went to his house, and he sort of gave me a tour in his car all around the region, and went back to his. Had this. Oh, you probably had it when you're in the Middle East. It's a green spice called za'atar, and they put it on their bread.
Yeah, yeah. It's very nice, isn't it?
I call it Arabic pizza. Like it's amazing. And then yeah, that was sort of the start of sort of the rural village Palestine that I experienced. And the way of life there is I mean, biblical is the word that comes to mind, obviously, because the land and the lifestyle, and even, I mean, obviously in the Bible they didn't speak Arabic, but it's related to
Yeah.
Hebrew or Aramaic or whatever. But it feels like a step back in time. It's yeah, it's beautiful.
It so does, doesn't it? I mean, and like you say, it is called the Holy Land, and there is a site like that in on almost every corner. It's such a crazy place that
Mhm.
I like that. I mean, you were raised in the UK for a little bit. I was raised in the UK, even though my family aren't Christian. There's Christian aspects when I was growing up all over society. We had to go to church on the last day of school before Christmas,
Yeah,
Easter. Even in some of my graduation ceremonies from my school, we had to go to the church and sing hymns. Like it's always relevant in my life. So
yeah,
to go and like I say, I mean, I like I say, I'm not religious, but I love history, and to go and absorb all that history there, it's amazing, isn't it? It really is.
yeah. And I mean, I am religious, and that was part of the reason I went there. I was born and raised Anglican, but
Mm.
I went to the Middle East and completely open-minded. I thought if any of the religions here give me a closer feeling to God than what I already felt, then absolutely I'd research it more. And I actually ended up converting to the Egyptian Orthodox Church, which I came across in Jerusalem, and that was just one of the church when I was inside there. It just I don't know, just something felt right about that, and that pilgrimage aspect of it was really important to me.
Oh wow, so you is that the Coptic Christians?
Yes, the Coptic
Yeah, the
Christians, yeah.
Coptic Christians, yeah. Oh, so you had a kind of your own little conversion experience, almost a road to Damascus experience,
Yeah, yeah,
the
exactly.
opposite
Yeah,
way, in the opposite way.
yeah. Yeah, it
Wow.
was that's special.
That is really special, and that's a really special thing to come out of a trip to Jerusalem and the Holy Land. Because one thing I saw there constantly, and something I found really moving over there, was you would see people, old women, they could, like say, a lot of South Americans coming over, and they're crying because this is everything to them, and it's
Yeah,
something so special, and it is a place to them which is, it's higher than earth.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And yeah, it was beautiful. But so yeah, on the walk, so that was what was that day two in Palestine, and after that so 2 days walk from Burkina is a town called Sanur, and I was in this town, probably the first white person I've seen in a long time, and um, so I come in, and this guy sort of comes rushing out of he was a barber, and he's got like this cold bottle of orange juice and like a bunch of little sweets in his other hand, and comes rushing out of his shop and gives it to me, and so we get talking. He spoke a little bit of English and everything, so I worked out he was a hairdresser, and he invited me into his shop and gave me a free trim actually, so that was
Ah,
a benefit. Because my hair and beard were getting a little bit messy, so that was that was quite good.
yeah, yeah, I actually got free cut in Jerusalem, in Israel as well. Actually,
Oh,
I got
right.
free haircut as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're very good barbers over there in
Oh,
Palestine.
they are.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sort you out with a
And
good
even
trim.
and even where I live now, like the local barber I go to, he's from Iraq as well. Like they just know how to do their hair. It's
Yeah,
brilliant.
yeah, they really do. And my barber in where I live now, he's Iranian, and he just takes pride in it. He says Iranian people know how to cut hair better than anyone else in the world. All right, man. You do it well. Like, you do it well, and I'll take your word for it.
Yeah.
So,
And in fact, that night, I had a bit of a scary experience. So I was I was going to camp on this mountain called Jebel Bayzid, and basically, so I got to it's a really really steep mountain, and I sort of found this little plateau on the side of it, and so that's a brilliant place to set up my camp, and so I got there, and I noticed lots of sort of stones around and everything, and I look up, and then I see these three Israeli fighter jets sort of going over me, and they stopped and they started circling the mountain, trying to sort of work out who I was, and that was so scary. Like honestly thought that could have been the end, but these fighter jets, they eventually went away. I think they were probably going to Syria. That's the direction they're flying in anyway. And that night, like the place where I was, that little plateau with the stones, I worked out it was a grave site of Sufi mystics from like the 1500s.
Wow.
And in the night, I kept hearing these sort of footsteps around the tents and stuff. And I'd always look outside, and I thought, oh, is my shirt flapping? So I took the shirt away, and oh, that was frightening. And I love. I'm quite interested in pre-Islamic mythology, and I thought, oh, these the genies that everyone talks about. But yeah, that was scary.
Did you never work out what it was?
Never. No footsteps in the morning. I probably was just thinking things. It was probably all in my head, but yeah.
I mean, it's actually quite common that people, especially in Islam, that they actually visit some. I mean, I don't know that it was quite a popular thing that I always heard around the Middle East, that people would go to the cemetery at night. When I was staying at a hostel in Bethlehem, my hostel owner, I woke up in the middle of the night. I wasn't sure what woke me up, but I saw my hostel owner, and he looked freaked. And basically, it was that there was a graveyard just next to the hostel, and someone's friend had died, and his friend was going to his grave every night and crying and screaming and crying, and obviously they'd heard him screaming and were terrified.
Wow.
So maybe it was just people visiting the grave. Although you say it's pre-Islamic, so.
Yeah, well, it was a Sufi grave, but I mean, I think Islam has some schools of Islam have sort of incorporated parts of pre-Islamic mythology into them, and everyone knows the story of the genie, and there's actually a really good Netflix series that came out recently called Jinn, and it's about these spirits, and they can be good or bad, and they're also mortal. Very interesting, and I thought, maybe, but who knows? From life's big mysteries.
Well, who knows? Who knows? So go on. Let's keep going after the graveyard.
Yeah. So after the graveyard, I kept walking. The place I was going to next is it's a town called Sebastia, and that's basically, it's the old Roman town of Sebasti, and before that, it was the city of ancient Samaria. It was destroyed by the Romans, I think, and they renamed it. And so they just, I love watching Indiana Jones as a kid, and just walking around a completely ancient, practically empty archaeological site was just, it's probably one of the best moments on the trip. It was sort of rivaled Petra, which will obviously come later, but yeah, it was really nice. And actually, when I got into Celestia that day, I heard a gunshot being fired, and so I sort of walked quite carefully up to the town square, which is sort of the direction of where it came. And I met a guy who owned a cafe and spoke English, and I was asking him about it. And it was a Friday, and apparently every Friday the boys in the town, they sort of go up and throw stones at the Israeli soldiers, and one of these soldiers had enough and shot a bullet into the air, luckily not at anyone, but that was quite harrowing.
Yeah, and this is one thing I was not used to in Israel, is the amount of people who carry guns just on the street it's insane.
Yeah, it's otherworldly. It's never seen anything like it before.
I genuinely, and I see guys, I mean, not older than yourself, carrying around assault rifles, and some of them look like they couldn't headbutt my knee.
Yeah, it's unreal. Yeah.
So,
I mean, obviously they sort of need to in a way, but it's sort of killed the vibe a bit. Like, I don't want to go to such a holy place and just be constantly reminded of the political situation, but it's part of the life there, I guess.
Yeah, it is. And I suppose just saying for the listeners, this isn't some sort of people running around with pistols like a cowboy situation. It's when you're in military service, you have to have your weapon on you at all times. So you're technically meant to eat, sleep, and shower with your weapon.
It's crazy.
In
It's like
civilian clothes, even in civilian clothes.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of my mates over here, he's Israeli actually, and he'll have to join the army after his degree, and just just seeing him walking around with a gun, just beggars belief how some people can get guns, you know?
I know, and it's just that's it. You have to carry a gun.
Yeah,
There's no way about it. Men, women, you have to do it.
yeah.
Yeah, it's
So,
well, sorry. When was this? When were you walking through the Middle East?
so I started in November of 2018 and finished it sort of midway through January in 2019. Yeah.
Okay, all right. Because I'm right in thinking that there was, yeah, what you were saying earlier, there was a lot of tension with Syria on the border in January 2019, wasn't there?
Yes, yeah, the Golan Heights and everything there. I
Yeah.
think because Assad and ISIS, I think, were fighting over the Golan Heights, and I think ISIS actually eventually won that fight.
I think like I mean ISIS have I think their stronghold was actually in the Lebanese border, and I think what Israel was shooting at were Iranian proxies, Iranian militant groups,
Yeah,
Iranian supported militant groups hiding in the Golan Heights.
yeah,
So
and
I
then
think.
the drones things that were going over, and yeah,
Yeah. Actually, in that fight with ISIS, you hear some crazy stories in the Lebanese mountains of the drug dealers having to fight off ISIS. Like the
oh,
Syrian government gave up, but obviously ISIS weren't going to let them keep their hashish farms or whatever they were, and
yeah,
so they just ran out there with their guns and their bazookas and they fought them off.
jeepers, wow,
There's a Vice, I think there's a Vice documentary on it. It's absolute madness.
yeah,
It's madness. I think it might be BBC actually, but definitely look it up. Look it up. I think
yeah,
just outside of Tripoli not Tripoli in Lebanon, not Tripoli, Libya.
yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, crazy stuff coming out of there.
that's mental.
Um, yeah, I know, right? But go on, let's keep walking.
Yeah. So where were we? And yeah. So after Sebastia, I walked to a very well-known city of Nablus. You might have been there.
No, I didn't actually go to Nablus. No, I mostly actually I traveled around more of the Palestinian territories, but more in the south.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Nablus is absolutely beautiful. Like it's one of the greatest cities I've ever been to. It's very very old, and on the top of one of the mountains called Mount Gerizim is the Samaritans, and that the guy I've already mentioned, Leon McCarran, made a documentary on them called How to Save a Tribe, and oh, I don't know how many people they've got left in their tribe. I want to say 400, but they've got a lot more men than women, and they've now started bringing in brides from like the Ukraine and Russia to marry into this sort of ancient community, which is traditionally only married within itself.
Mm.
And I was there just in a cafe, and I saw these two blonde women with their husbands sort of in the street, and it took me by surprise a bit. But I watched the documentary and made sense.
Why from Ukraine and Russia?
I don't know. I mean, I'm guessing that's probably their taste. I don't know.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, I guess fair enough. Yeah,
Don't blame
it's
them, to
strange,
be
isn't it?
honest.
It's
But
strange.
yeah,
Yeah. I'm not. Yeah. Oh, right. That's a new one on me. I'd never heard of that before.
yeah. Oh, that was a bit of a shock, and they've got a museum at the top of the mountain, and there's the guy who owns it. He basically they can all trace their lineage generation by generation to Adam and Eve, like because as soon as you get to sort of Abraham, like
Mm.
through sort of historical records, after you get to Abraham, you just follow the biblical sources, and you get to Adam, and to be able to track your ancestry that far is it's incredible.
Well. I mean, are you saying they can actually track their ancestry back to Adam, the first man.
Yes, because they're all related to the high priest. And the high priest, basically there's a lineage of high priests, and they're always the son or grandson of the previous one. So they claim anyway that they can trace it, but they practice the religion they practice is very, very similar to Judaism, but they've got like their own version of the Torah. And they believe that instead of Jerusalem being the holy city, it's Mount Gerizim, and Gerizim is basically means best, I think, in the old Hebrew, or maybe even Arabic today. My Arabic's not that good, but yeah, these people are fascinating. One of the sort of smallest and oldest ethno-religious groups in the world.
Oh, wow, I mean, like I say, I mean, that's quite a bold claim to be able to say
Yeah.
related to Adam. You know, I mean, because there's obviously many people who would question even if that story happened. But
Yeah.
I mean, wow,
Yeah.
that's impressive. I mean, Abraham, I can believe, because of course I've seen. I mean, I'm sure you have as well. I've seen the tombs of Abraham and his family in
Yeah.
Hebron. So I mean that, of course, I mean that can be traced back, because there is solid evidence that they were real people. But that's really interesting. I'd like to do more research on that.
Yeah.
Actually, sorry, it was Leon Macron who did the documentary, right?
Yes. Yeah, he did it. It's a brilliant documentary. One of the greatest ones, I think.
Yeah, I'm trying to get in contact with him to get him on the podcast. You know,
Oh, that'd be brilliant.
Yeah, I'm trying so hard, but he's an elusive man. He's an elusive man.
Yeah.
I'm sure I'll hopefully get him at some point.
Yeah, I'm sure you will.
Yeah.
And yeah, so after Nablus, that was sort of stage one in the West Bank, and stage two was to get to Jericho and then Jerusalem. And so on the day I left Nablus, I was just following Google Maps on my phone to get to this town called Ossarin. And so I went through this place called Balata. I didn't think anything of it when I walked in, and sort of immediately I walked in, and sort of the atmosphere was very edgy, and sort of I was walking, and you know, I stand out greatly because of my red hair and everything, and everyone was looking at me with sort of quite angrily as well. And I sort of look up and around, and they've got flags of the I think it's called the Al-Aqsa Liberation Front, and that's one of the prescribed sort of terrorist groups of the European Union, and they're everywhere. And so I keep walking through this place, and sort of get to the end of it. It's a very, very small sort of village and or suburb, and I get this can of Pepsi, and it hits me at the back of the head, and as it was thrown, someone shouted Yehudi, it's Arabic for Jew. So they thought I was a prospective sort of Israeli settler or something, or in their minds anyway, a bad guy. And so they throw this at me, and I didn't realise where I was or anything, and you know, I quite like Pepsi, so picked it up off the ground, finished it, and then rather stupid, sort of gave them a sort of a sarcastic bow, and sort of turned it upside down to show that I'd finished, and said shukran, and said thank you, and walked on. And anyway, I looked up to where I was, and Balata is actually it's the most. I think there's a Financial Times article that described it as one of the most dangerous place in all of Palestine, Gaza included, and one of the most febrile in the Middle East. And it was in this town that the second Intifada actually started. And a couple of years before I was there, this Al-Aqsa group took control of the town, and there was a big rooftop battle between the Palestinian Authority and this Palestinian sort of militant group, and that was huge sort of miscalculation. I should have checked where I was going, but that was that's really, really scary, that was.
Yeah, I mean that could have ended badly. I mean, I was actually going to ask you just in general, like, what was it like? I was going to ask you what it was like traveling as a Christian in Israel and Palestine, but I mean, traveling as a redhead as well. That's actually quite interesting because I was lucky enough is that because of my complexion, most people thought I was Palestinian. I didn't really get bothered by that much by anyone really.
Yeah.
But I mean, did you have much experiences because of the way you look?
Um, yeah, I mean, lots of people were touching my hair and everything like that. And in Nablus, there's a Christian district in Nablus, and lots of, in fact, this what surprised me the most. And these girls were sort of coming out and stroking my hair, being quite flirtatious and everything. I got a bit overwhelmed by it. And then on the flip side, there's a high percentage of European Jews who do have red hair.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and so that obviously didn't work in my favor
Mm.
in this particular town. And so that was scary. And there was another instance in Jordan actually where stupidly they asked me where I was from, and I replied in Arabic, I'm from Australia, but for some reason, I still don't know why, I pronounced Australia like Israel. I forgot to pronounce the T when I was pronouncing it in Arabic, so it sounded quite similar to Israel, and these people just
So
picked up
so
the
what's
phone
so
from the ground.
what's Australian in Arabic and what's Israel in Arabic?
So Israel is Israel, I
Yeah.
think, and then Australia is Australia, but I pronounced it as Australia, and
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
that was the yeah, that was the bit of it was a bit of a pain in the ass to be honest, but and anyway, I got to this town called Osirene eventually, and I was gonna sleep at this sort of ancient Roman tower, and then these two Palestinian boys came up, and I thought, oh geez, these are people from the village, what are they going to do to me? Um, and But they were very kind in the end, and this guy's name was Saifullah, which is a very interesting name. It's Arabic for the sword of God, and he sort of brought me to his mate's house, and that night it's just like it's just a night with the lads, really. It had a shisha in the middle. Everyone was smoking like copious amounts of cigarettes, like sometimes two in their mouth at the same time, and like Arabic rap playing and stuff. It's just like lads will be lads wherever they are. Like obviously they don't drink, but like that sort of really opened me between some of the similarities between us.
And that's actually true. I mean, especially like I mean, no matter where you go, I mean, you just see young people hanging out with their friends doing what young people do. It's in Israel, in Palestine, in these places, even Bethlehem, Hebron, where
Yeah.
people are. There's so many horror stories come out. You just see kids hanging out with their friends as well, just in the street.
Yeah,
Just similarities, yeah, like you said.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's
Um,
really good.
yeah. So let's keep going. So how long? So where'd you go after that?
So from Osirene, I had I think probably 5 or 6 days walk until Jericho, and I stopped by this town. I can't remember the name. I think it was Dana or something like that. And basically, I was staying with a guy there, and he told me this story of some Israeli settlers coming down to the village next to Dana and basically Molotoving this entire house. And inside were two kids, sorry, one kid and their parents, and the parents died, and this kid was sort of third and fourth degree burns all around his body, and he was the only one that survived, and he lives with his grandparents now. And the guy was saying that apparently these guys are walking free in Israel and everything, and being applauded as heroes, but I didn't see any evidence to back that up. I mean, from what I saw, it looked like they were locked up, but some of the stuff that goes on there is abhorrent, and it's not just the Israelis, it's the Palestinians. There are some vice versa attacks as well, but it's again another sort of wake up call, and more sort of desensitization to the sort of very concepts of life and death, and sort of how how fragile and precious life is, and how quickly it can be taken away.
Exactly. And what I noticed a lot walking in the Palestinian territories is so many people have scars on them, on their arms, on their legs, on their faces.
Mm.
So
Yeah,
many.
it's all from the occupation, or however you want to describe it. There's a girl at my university, and she's from Palestine, and apparently she was shot when she was young. So yeah, it's some nasty people in the world.
With an actual bullet. She was shot with an actual bullet or a rubber bullet.
To be honest, I haven't actually spoken to her about it, but apparently it was. I think it was a rubber bullet, from what I've heard.
Because I've read quite a lot. I've read quite a lot of stories that they do put steel in the rubber bullets anyway, which will kill you if it hits you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like Leveson Wood, I think in his
in
walk
Arabia.
Arabia one, I think they cut open the bullet on the TV, and it was fully steel inside.
There's steel in there. Yeah. I've seen that. I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's wrong.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, it's crazy stuff. Really is. So where'd you go after Jericho?
So after Jericho, I went to Jerusalem, and I spent about a week in Jerusalem. Really, that was a bit of sort of rest and relaxation. I rented an Airbnb in fact, one of the ultra Orthodox neighborhoods, and every time I'd go out to the pub every night and get fairly drunk. And
were you in the old city or the new city?
Sorry.
Were you in the old city or the new city?
It was the new city. Yeah.
New city. See, I stayed right in the center of the old city, and I had a mattress. I was volunteering at a hostel, and I had a mattress set up on the rooftop. So I'd wake up and I could see the Dome of the Rock, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. It was awesome.
Yeah. The old city of Jerusalem that's really like the quarters, and the Armenians that live there. Actually, the Armenians, they practice the same Christianity that I converted to, the Egyptian branch.
Yes.
Copts, and yeah, I mean, you go from one end and you see sort of old-fashioned Jews with the side locks, and the ultra-Orthodox, and then you go to the next one and you're surrounded by mosques, and the call to prayer is going on, and which is a beautiful sound, by the way, and then you go to the Armenian and the Arab Christian neighborhoods, and it's amazing how for so long so many people have been living in that city, all from very diverse backgrounds, and up until not even 100 years ago.
1948. So 70, less than 100, 70, 80 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now they're sort of at each other's throat.
Yeah, that's so true. It's crazy. And then you step out of the old walls of the city, of the old walls of the city, and then you're in this modern European metropolis, and you're like, this is crazy. And then over the hill you can see massive black smoke rising up out of the air from some tires being burned or some riots going on. It is unbelievable. Jerusalem is an unbelievably weird place.
Yeah.
It's just there is no other city like it, but there's something really amazing about the chaos there.
Yeah, and that's what I think the draw is. I want to go back, and
same.
It's so chaotic, and within that chaos there's so much beauty as well.
Yeah,
it's real nice.
Really nice place. So where from Jerusalem?
Yeah, in Jerusalem. In fact, at this we've got like a district of pubs that's absolutely called Berlin, and so I was there, and I'd met some friends. I met some friends in the day, just sort of because I was a bit lonely, and so they said, oh yeah, we're going to go out tonight. So I gave them the number, and we met up, and I'm not sure if you've heard of it. It's very underreported, but within Israel, there's a lot of tension between white Jews and Ethiopian Jews. And,
I've heard a little bit about this. I have heard a little bit about this.
Yeah, and So we were at this pub on sort of the outside bench, and sort of my group of friends who were European Jews, they were here, and then the Ethiopian Jews on the bench next to it. And I asked this one of the Ethiopian Jews if they had a lighter, and he just looked at me and then said something in Hebrew to the people I was with, and they just looked at me and said, don't talk to him, don't talk to him. And this one, the Ethiopian Jew, when he finished his cigarette, he flicked it at one of the people on my table, and he flicks it back at the Ethiopian Jew, and then the Ethiopian gets up and gives him a massive slap across the face, and big fight broke out. And I like the guys I was with. I was trying to defend them a bit, and then I saw a knife at the very, very back and started running and got the police to go down there. Like, that was another one of them, scary moments. But I suppose it always happens if you're gonna. I mean, that sort of stuff happens everywhere in pubs, and whether or not it was racial or alcohol related or mixed together, like, I'll never know. But yeah.
But I mean, like I say, that is just crazy. Is that you even think that something like that can be related to religion or something like that in a bar, in a pub? Yeah. That sort of stuff. That never. Can you imagine if you're like, the Christian fella and the Jew fella in the pub got in a fight over, like, got in a punch up over religion? It wouldn't happen. It wouldn't happen in the UK and stuff like that. It's a different mindset. It's a different world.
Yeah.
It's really crazy.
It's maddening. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that ruined sort of Jerusalem for me a bit, and that's part of the reason I want to go back as well, like, give it another chance. But after that, when I was in Jericho, I knew that I wouldn't be able to cross the border from Jericho into Jordan because I hadn't pre-arranged my visa. So I walked as close to the bridge as possible, and then turned back. And so I had to get a bus from Jerusalem up to the very, very north border crossing with Jordan, and then get a taxi down to where basically just the other side of the bridge, and continued walking from there. And Jordan, just going into Jordan again, it's a lot like Palestine, but it's a lot more ordered. I feel it's a very strict monarchy, and very ancient Bedouin traditions, which I didn't experience much in Palestine. The Palestinians were more sort of the fellahin, the farmers, and straight away in Jordan, I knew this is going to be an amazing sort of addition.
Yeah, well, it's actually quite interesting that you say that, because actually, like, what I found is the like the more Bedouin people in, like, in Aqaba and Wadi Rum, those are more like the more Jordanian people, and actually in Amman and in the north, quite a lot of them are of Palestinian origin. They come from just over the Dead Sea.
Yeah, absolutely. And lots of sort of Syrians are there as well. And what's interesting, they speak quite different dialects of Arabic. So that there is certainly back before sort of it became more sort of standardized in Jordan, they really did struggle to understand each other, and how they got these two very different types of Arabs living together is quite impressive, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, Arabic. I mean, when I was in the Middle East, I must have come across six or seven different types of Arabic, plenty of dialects.
Yeah, it's and I'm learning Arabic actually at the moment in university, and we're learning the Fusha, so that's the modern standard Arabic, which is not modern and it's not standard. Like, it's like learning Latin before you have to learn French or Spanish or any of those languages. They're all so different, and that's part of the beauty in it as well.
Yeah, it is, and I think that's actually why I think in later years, when the Middle East calms, when tensions in the Middle East calm down, I actually think it'll be a really powerful region in world politics, because them and North Africa can be united by this common language, which is spoken by about 30, 40 different countries, or maybe 20 or 30 different countries, with access to oil and vast natural resources. Once they are unified and stop fighting, it can be a serious powerhouse in the world.
Yeah, and I mean, I think we're on sort of the cusp of a new Islamic golden age. It's which ended sort of towards the end of the Ottoman Empire, and they've got the resources now, and if only they could stop fighting in amongst themselves, and then obviously the West has got to stop interfering a bit too. But yeah, in the cusp of brilliance the Arabs are on again.
Yeah, like you said, they have the resources, they have the work ethic as well.
Yeah.
Incredibly hard workers.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And they work so hard. I do see. I mean, we've seen the rise of Saudi Arabia in recent years as well. We need all those other countries to follow, and it will be a very interesting region.
Yeah. And what would also be interesting is whether they follow the Saudi Arabia or the Gulf sort of system of governance, which is much more sort of officially at least religious, or they'll go for like the sort of the Saddam Hussein sort of type, the Pan-Arabism, which is much more secular. But so that's the other thing. How are they gonna get to greatness? Is it going to be through sort of a dictatorship, a secular dictatorship, or is it going to be through a religious system of governance? It's going to be fascinating. The next 50 years are going to be really interesting.
It will be. It's very interesting. It's actually really interesting as you bring up that point as well, because as in Islam, it has this almost reverence for an authoritarian, well, or not an authoritarian figure, but a figure at the top to lead. And I think this is why, I mean, there is this theory is that like there are various cultures around the world that almost need a strong figure at the top to dictate their country and their culture, because that's how it's written in. They respect this authoritarian and strong figure. And I mean, my personal opinion from what I've read of Islam is that follows that model. So it will be interesting to see whether they will go down that route of they will have a particular strongman or strong family like they do in Jordan, like they do in Saudi Arabia, where the royal family has absolute power, or will they go down the military route like Egypt has? Democracy has been tried in Lebanon, and I know it's shaking at the moment. But Lebanon was, I mean, I know a few years ago it had its places that it had to have a certain number of Muslims, Christians in their parliament. So we'll have to see. But it's a complex region, and like you say, in the next 50 years, it could be a very different one.
Yeah, exciting times, and So where was I? So Jordan. So the first night in Jordan, or the first day, I walked to a place called Mount Nebo, which is where Moses is buried, and they've got it's a new Christian church built on top of a very old one, and inside they've got some incredible mosaic work, and I think there's a very small mosque next to it as well, which I didn't go inside, but the view, because I think Moses he wasn't allowed to enter the promised land. He wasn't allowed to cross the Jordan River, but from this mountain on a clear day, which unfortunately it wasn't, you can see Jerusalem, you can see Jericho and the Dead Sea, and to be honest, one of the best places I reckon you could be put to rest, to be honest, because the view there is it's magnificent and
amazing, right? Amazing, with the Dead Sea and the mountains, and like you can see the I think it's the Galilee National Park in Israel as well. The mountains, the Roman Citadel mountains. Stunning place. Stunning place.
Oh yeah, and when I'm up at the top and I see, I mean even the clouds, to be honest, gave me sort of a spiritual sort of vibe. I don't know, but like there's just sort of at various points in the trip, and this was one of them. I just look up and say, this is definitely the Holy Land. This is definitely the Promised Land. There's some sort of blessing and curse which is on it, which is always going to force people to fight over this piece of land.
Yeah, it's just in the very essence of the land is that there is something special about the place.
Mm, yeah. And at this Mount Nebo place, I met a guy called O'Day, and again he very very kind, and he took my backpack and we walked for about 5 kilometers through the dark to his house. He even bought me some pot noodles at one of the little shops. Like it was incredible. Like again the hospitality and this is the second, because in Palestine I was staying at sort of designated people's houses, and in Jordan that was completely out the window. So if I couldn't find a family or some lads to take me in, then I'd sleep out in the bush, which is obviously fine. But yeah, that first night in Jordan, and that's it's just, it's incredible.
Yeah, there's something as well. I mean, I slept out out wild in Wadi Rum Desert, and the sky over in Jordan, the night sky is so clear, isn't it?
Oh, it's amazing. Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. I've only seen clearer in Lapland in Finland.
Ah, okay. Right.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
beautiful, and I mean that's it as well. I mean, I'm a massive fan of the Book of the Arabian Nights, so
Yes.
Sleep Under the
That's
Arabian Night
yeah.
is amazing.
Yeah. It's really good. And there was one of my nights in Wadi Rum. I was just sort of leaning against this rock face. I wasn't sleeping very well at that point, and just looked up into the sky and just stargazed for a good sort of 3-4 hours, and just sort of the concept of time was completely irrelevant for that night. Like it's really really special.
Yeah, yeah, I had that many. I was volunteering in Wadi Rum for about 2 weeks, so I was sleeping out every night.
Yeah.
And I bought a whole load of tax-free whiskey in Aqaba, and every night I would just drink and sip the whiskey and just stargaze. Yeah.
Yeah. I bet the Bedouin guides at Wadi Rum were quite keen on that whiskey. Or would you keep it secret?
I kept it secret.
That's wise.
I'm ashamed to admit that. I kept it secret. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's one of the things that I mean, I'm sort of quite against mass commercial tourism, and that's some of the things, like you're corrupting ancient people and their practices, like the Jordanians, especially the Bedouin in the places that tourists are going, like every single woman who was at this hostel, they would instantly try to hiss on her straight away,
Yeah.
they'd say, "Oh, I have whiskey," or one of them even offered me a joint. Like it's
I know, right? And I like, as I say, I was volunteering with these Bedouin, and it's been mentioned in an earlier episode that I basically I had some complications with them, and they ended up getting a little bit pissed off with me because I was basically running their business, and I wasn't too happy about that, but I was enjoying where I was sleeping, so I stayed.
Sure.
And I was reading through their emails, and basically I was reading what I'd read from another volunteer was that some sort of Bedouin gang war had erupted over another volunteer, and that there was threatenings of of someone being shot, and they were saying that they're going to take their assault rifles out into the desert and they're going to fight it out. And I have no idea what happened, but I packed up and left pretty quickly, not too many days.
Yeah,
I realized I pissed off these people with guns. I should probably get out of here.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Jeez. And yes, after Mount Nebo, I sort of went down into Mazaba, which is sort of a ancient Roman city, which has got, I think, 50% of the town was actually Christian. And then after that, I went to a city called Karak, which has got, you probably went there. It's got a very nice sort of castle, Crusader castle.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I passed it. I think I passed through.
Okay, yeah, it's on the King's Highway anyway, so yeah, you would have went through it at least, and that was that castle it's really something special. I mean, my dad studied the Crusades quite a lot in his university degree, and yeah, so since a young age, I was fascinated by them, and this castle was eventually fell to Saladin and the legendary Muslim anti-crusade warrior, and and it's all in ruins now. But I think it was still used by the Ottomans up until like the beginning of the 1900s.
Wow. Yeah. Going back, did you visit the tomb of Abraham in Hebron?
No, I
Oh,
didn't.
you
I
didn't.
didn't
You
No,
didn't.
it was. Yeah, it was.
That,
I
that's a
wish I
shame.
did.
Yeah, 'cause
Yeah.
basically in there, actually, just behind Abraham's tent, Abraham's tomb, which you can see in, and you see the coffin covered. There's actually a chair which was awarded to Saladin. It was his actual chair. He sat in it. You know the classic Arabic style chairs, which they kind of have
Yeah.
stairs at the foot, and they go
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they have no
Oh,
springs in them. That was actually Saladin's chair.
wow.
It was awarded to him once he liberated the Crusaders of the Holy Land.
That's incredible.
It was
That's
awesome. It was
amazing.
awesome. Yeah, yeah. That's such a shame you missed that, man.
Yeah, I didn't go anywhere further south than
Uh,
Jerusalem. I didn't even get to Bethlehem because it was hailing on the day that I was supposed to go there, and
uh,
I had a lot of stuff to do and lots of planning for Jordan, but yeah, definitely I'm gonna go back to Palestine. I'm thinking of studying at Al-Najeh University in one of the upcoming summers and doing an Arabic summer course there, and because there's still so much that I've got to explore there.
which university is that? Sorry.
I think it's called An-Najeh. It's in
Where is it?
Nablus.
In
In
Nablus.
Nablus,
Ah,
yeah.
awesome, awesome.
Yeah, yeah, it's amazing, and yes, back in Jordan, I was the following night I walked to this town called Malé, I think, and I met, it was very very dark, and this boy tells me to come across the side of the road, and I think, oh, thank God, here we go, I've got a place to sleep tonight, and so he invites me in, and there's this sort of man, and he's very sort of grand looking. He's got an amazing moustache, and I look around on the walls, and there are pictures of him shaking hands with the King of Jordan, and it turns out he was the leader, the sheikh of of one of the Arabic tribes called the Al Hamida family, and it was beautiful. Like, he'd get really angry at me if I even touched my phone inside, if I wanted to take a video or something. Like, it was very very traditional, sort of sitting on the floor. The only thing that wasn't traditional is everyone was smoking Marlboro red cigarettes, but apart from that, they were having like a sort of a debate between, there was a farmer and a businessman. They were arguing over something, and sort of the sheikh was in the middle, and sort of he very intelligent about Islamic law and that sort of thing. So he was there to resolve the dispute, and it was basically being in a time capsule. Like, that's the sort of thing that, even if you look at the Middle East through like Al Jazeera or any of the Vice or whatever, you still don't see that, but it still is going on, and that was brilliant. That was.
Yeah. Oh, it sounds amazing. Sounds
Yeah.
really awesome. And then where'd you go down south? So you keep going south. Where did
Yeah.
you ended in Aqaba, correct?
Aqaba. So yeah, I went through the Nakab after that, and that was probably my favorite part of the trip, because that was like it's sort of semi-desert, but it's Petra before that, of course, which was beautiful. But
How can you
forget that?
I was actually looking at one of your website, and one of the pictures you've got up on there, I'll send it to you. Which one? I actually know exactly where that picture was taken, and it was just as you wind down south on that road into Wadi Musa.
Yes.
Where I'm guessing that would have been the road that you walked down into Wadi Musa to. But the way I came, I went north, so I went out of it that way towards Amman.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
I entered Petra through it's a lesser known route. It's not that official at all. And you start at Little Petra, which is about 15 kilometers north, and through there.
Yeah, see, you actually would have basically passed where I stayed. There would have been a literally like a concrete house just at the side of a hill with a
Oh,
small
wow.
farm in front of it. That's where I stayed. If I sent you the
Oh,
picture, I'm
amazing.
sure you would recognize it.
Yeah, yeah.
You recognize it? It was right out there, but it was such an awesome little shack.
Yeah, yeah. I know. It springs into mind. Yeah.
Yeah, right next to Little Petra.
Yeah, it's incredible. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I know exactly. Yes. Yeah, got it. Yeah, yeah. Wow.
Funny as that. And when were you there? When were you there? Sorry.
I was last winter.
So what was that?
I got to Petra on actually New Year's Day 2019.
New Year's Day. Okay, so I was there in March, so I missed you by 3 months.
Oh wow.
Yeah, yeah,
That's incredible.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah. Sorry, go on, continue. I interrupted you there.
that's fine.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean Petra's beautiful. I'd had a rest day in Karak, and I was watching An Idiot Abroad. The
Yeah,
cartoon.
yeah, 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 of course.
I was-
Yeah. I was listening. I still listen to the podcasts. I
yeah.
think it's so funny. Yeah.
And he's I think he's in the monastery, and he's sort of complaining that there's like one step and then a massive one, and he sort of steps on one and then sort of bangs into the wall, and it's
Yeah.
just the exact picture in my mind when
Yeah. Yeah. I
uh,
mean, I would love to get him on the podcast as well. I am going to try and get Carl on the podcast. Everybody, please help me try and get Carl Pilkington on this podcast. That's the second wonders of the world. It needs to happen. Go on, continue.
then it was the Nakab, and so it's sort of semi-desert area, and that was probably the most untouched place that I ever went to on the walk. Everyone was wearing very traditional clothing. I started wearing traditional clothing as well. I bought sort of the jalabiya and the kufiyya, and I was wearing that, which always caused a few giggles around, but
Mm.
it's quite practical actually in the desert.
Yeah.
And the Nakab is very traditional Bedouin way of life. Herding animals, very semi-nomadic, and I stayed with actually he was a major in the Jordanian Special Forces, and spoke perfect English. This tiny, tiny little village, and I was going to sleep in the local bus stop, which was next to the mosque, and then the call to prayer came, and he came over and on his way to pray, but he was talking to me before that, and so he let me stay at his place that night. But something I always found especially in Jordan when I was really beginning to stink was I'd get in and they just immediately told me to go to the shower and like just part of my socks, like, because they were the worst. Like, they'd get crispy. Like, it's disgusting.
This is true. I had this, and when I was walking in summer, I mean, your socks get ruined as well, but I mean, it got so hot on my feet that I was wearing steel toe caps that it melted my toenail and sort of changed the shape of it, and my toenail was basically in the shape of a triangle for about 6 months.
Jeepers.
Yeah. It was, I mean, walking takes it out of you. It really does. It's not a simple stroll.
No, not at all. Wow. And yeah, so in the following day, in the Nakaba, I went to this other guy's house called Suleiman, and he and his mates they gave me an Arabic name, which I sort of still sometimes refer to myself as these days. It's Suwailim al-Huwaidi. I don't know what Suwailim means. I've never even heard of the Arabic name, but the al-Huwaidi is their family. So they took me into their family and sort of dressed me up in their specific tribal clothing, and that was a magnificent night. Yeah. Again, everyone smokes over there. That was the one thing that I wasn't a huge fan of, but being given a name and sort of taken into their family was brilliant.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that is true, but very true among with the smoking thing. And I mean, this is a tip. Of course, I would never encourage smoking, but in the Middle East, particularly, a lot of the scary people smoke. So it is. I always used to carry a packet of cigarettes on me just in case.
Yeah, yeah.
So there's some
Smoking
tips for anybody who wants to go to the Middle East there.
Yeah, it's always wise to. I think it was from a Leveson Wood talk. I think he was giving it in London, and he said, whenever there's a man with a gun, just offer him a smoke and
Oh, really? Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, no, it's good advice. Good advice.
Definitely it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, after that, I entered Body Rum, and the day I entered Body Rum, there were these two farmers, sort of my age farmers, and just on the side of the road, and I was playing music through my phone that was in my breast pocket, and it was awful music. It was German rap music, to just give everyone an example of the kind of rubbish I listened to, and they came over looking really, really angry. They wanted to see my phone, so I took it out. I thought they were just, interested in what model it was or something. But they were threatening to throw it off this cliff. And luckily by this stage, I'd been in the Arab-speaking world for a month and a half, and so I was able to try and sort of let them know, using my very, very basic Arabic. I was trying to say, what would God think about this?
Yeah.
Sort of pointing at my head and then pointing at the sky and saying Allah, and then saying haram, haram, and just trying to get it across. And eventually I got the phone back, and then the other guy, so there were two of them, and the other guy got really quite angry at me, and he started kicking me and pushing me and everything, and it's the one time in the past couple of years where I've genuinely feared my own safety because of another person. So I had to punch him, unfortunately, quite hard in the stomach. I didn't want to punch him in the head, because if I did knock him out, he would fall onto a tarmac road, and there are a lot of cases in Australia of people dying like that, and obviously I'd hate to kill. So,
of course.
Stomach, wind him. He started crying, and then his mate sort of was looking after him, and it just sort of jogged away. But I still that comes up in my dreams now, still today. It's quite stressful. But I got to Wadi Rum, and that was the night that I already said I couldn't sleep very well on, and just looking at the stars and just reflecting about my actions and sort of greater things like sort of philosophy and really, really interesting internal thoughts that everyone I think goes through in certain points of their life. And then I got to the Bedouin tourist camp, which was not very fun at all. I was told there'd be Wi-Fi, free included. Turns out I had to pay 10 dinar per night for it.
Oof.
And then what else is there? They charged me. Booking.com said that the camp was in Wadi Rum village, which is sort of, I think there's one hostel there or something, but there's not much. And
it's where you get picked up. It's where you get picked up to be taken into the desert.
Yeah, exactly. And so I was there, and the guy comes and he picks me up and everything, and drives me a good half an hour to where the campsite is, and then he gets out of the car and says, "That'll be 40 dinar, thanks." That was not included. I was supposed to be paying €5 per night, 5 dinars per night at this place, and it ended up costing me over 100, because they kept on, and that's for 2 nights. It was
a scam.
Yeah, it's absolutely awful.
A scam. Yeah.
And eventually there were some. I met some Irish guys at this camp, and they had all the same complaints as I did, and basically they were saying that one of their guide, their sort of Bedouin caretaker, was trying to get them to go on a safari tour in his 4-wheel drive, and they were interested by what I was doing, and this guy Mark was his name, and he just said, George, what do you think about just walking around here for half a day? And I just said, yeah, it's a brilliant idea. You'd save money and everything, and no word of a lie, this Bedouin guy heard me, took me outside, threatened me because apparently I was taking business away from him.
Yeah, I've seen Bedouins get quite aggressive when it comes to things like this. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I obviously understand it's his way of living, but it's unnecessary. And of course, they're not gonna take the trip if I've just been threatened by them and they found out about that. Like, and then those are the same people that hit on the women and quite harassingly as well. And smoking weed and drinking whiskey from the bottle at night. It wasn't particularly nice them 2 nights, but I had 3 days left after that, and sort of just going through. Wadi Rum is absolutely beautiful. Every single person listening should definitely travel there. It's fascinating.
One of my favorite places in the world.
Yeah.
Gorgeous place.
Yeah, the rocks coming out the desert. I know there's Lawrence of Arabia had a quote from it. It was vast, echoing, and godlike. And four very, very basic words, but there's something about how basic it is and how great that makes it. Because the desert is nothing. It's so harsh. It's so unforgiving, and there's nothing going on really. And that's why I think I'm attracted to it so much. Being alone and thinking the whole time, and sort of realizing how small we are in the world. I got into Stoicism, the philosophy of Marcus Aurelius, when I was in the desert here, and because it just makes you really sort of ponder things like existence and sort of your place in the world and everything like that. It was really sort of mind blowing, and I think Wadi Rum alone actually probably matured me the most out of anything on the trip.
Really?
Yeah, it's really, really interesting and character making, I'd say. And then so 3 days from Rum to 2 days actually from Rum to Aqaba. And this one night I stayed at this so on the way to this town, it's called Ice, I think, and I didn't know, but there are apparently hyenas in the Middle East. I thought they were only in Africa, but apparently they're in Jordan as well. And as I was walking through this, towards the southern end of Wadi Rum, the canyons sort of narrow a bit more and they become a little bit shorter. So I was walking through here and I just heard this rock fall, and I was like, oh, it could be a camel that's up in front of me. It's just knocked over a rock, or maybe a human. I'm not sure. And so I go over and sort of don't really care, don't really think that there could be anything too dangerous. And then I see nothing, and I see these prints, and they're sort of like mixed between dog and cat prints, and I knew straight away it was a hyena. So I just I thought in my mind, do I either try and sneak past it, or do I try and let it know that I'm here? Because I know some animals prefer different approaches. So I went for the loud option, which I think was correct. And then luckily nothing happened, but that was the one really scary experience with wildlife.
Did you see it?
I didn't. I just saw it was 3 individual tracks going across this sand, and they obviously sort of climbed up this little valley afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, they probably smelt you coming.
Yeah, they would have. Definitely at that stage. I could smell myself. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, I got this village in the end, and then the next day set off for Aqaba, and so it was the final day, and this is the scariest experience on the trip. Between the village of Ice and Aqaba, there are 3 sort of sets of mountains that you have to go up and down. And I was on the second one going down, and I was following a shepherd's trail, and I lost it. And I saw this dry riverbed. And I thought, okay, let's follow that down. And eventually, there's a little waterfall, but it's not too big. So I sort of jumped down it. It's probably 2 meters at most to drop. I only realized once I got down there, I can't get back up. I'm not going to be able to drag my backpack and myself up this rock face. So I keep going down, and then there's like a good 15-meter drop of where a waterfall would be if it was raining or if it had water in it. And okay, I'm stuck. I can't go back. Obviously, can't go down. And there was this screed slope that sort of was probably is in between the two drops. So I say, okay, let's get to the top of this and let's carefully cross it, because at the bottom of this screed slope is that 15-20 meter drop into the hard desert ground. It was a complete sort of sandstone down there, and I did slip, unfortunately, and I'm sort of sliding uncontrollably down this screed slope, and I'm genuinely thinking this is actually the end. I'm thinking, I'm sorry, Mum, I'm sorry, Dad. Why was I doing this? I'm so stupid, so young, so immature. And then I see this boulder that's right in front of me, and I thought, if anything, this is the only chance I've actually got to survive this. And I dug my hands into the screed, and that was bloody painful actually, because it's sharp rocks, and I was to slow myself down so I could try and grab onto this boulder, which I didn't even know if it was secure or not. But luckily it was, and I just went I got myself back up and very, very slowly and carefully crossed the remainder of this screed slope, which wasn't much now, and got to the other side and just sort of laid down on my backpack for a good hour, because I almost died. I went to shock. I was bleeding quite a lot and hitting the head a few times by rocks, and a bit of a nosebleed as well. That was really, really scary. And then I had about 10 or so kilometers to go after that to reach Aqaba, which I reached by sundown, and that was it. That's walking the Holy Lands.
What an end to that! Holy crap!
Yeah.
Wow. I bet you were happy to get to Aqaba at that point.
Oh, it was amazing. Like I took out my phone because I wanted to record my last footsteps, and I got there, I broke into tears, and it's tears of happiness because I've just done something which I'm quite proud of, and then tears of sadness because I realised how much I've loved this trip. And if money or time weren't an issue, I was listening to you talk about your travels in the Sinai Peninsula, and if I had the time and money, I probably would have continued there and go up to the I think it's St. Catherine's Monastery.
Yeah, I wouldn't check. I don't know how easy walk. I don't know if you get permission to walk over there. I don't even know if you would want to inside. But
I know there's a hiking trail, I think, in Sinai, isn't it? The Sinai Trail.
There is in St. Catherine's, yeah, but you wouldn't be able to sort of walk from, say, the Taba border at Israel down to Dahab. I'm sure they wouldn't.
Right, okay.
The military wouldn't let you do that. They might do, but I imagine you'd probably need some sort of permission.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, but look into it, man.
Definitely.
It's a fabulous area.
Plans,
Yeah, you could see it from Aqaba.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful part of the world because you've got Egypt, you've got Israel, Jordan, which obviously I'm in, and then Saudi. And just sort of I had a swim afterwards and sort of just looked around, and it's amazing, really amazing. And
so that was the end of your trip. Wow, you've been talking for an hour and a half.
Really?
Yeah, an hour and a half. How's the weather? God. So let's go on. Let's quickly finish up a bit more. So what's next? Sure. What's next for you? You're 18. The world is ahead of you. You've already this fantastic experience under your belt. What's next for you, man?
So I was going to go to Turkish and Iraqi Kurdistan this summer, but the whole Corona situation means I've got to postpone that to next summer. So instead, I'm going to go with a group of 4 or 5 mates and walk the Portuguese Camino de Compostela in
beautiful,
Portugal and Spain, and sort of something not as extreme as walking the Holy Land.
Yeah, I've actually got I think I've got an episode coming up about someone who's walked all Spain's 8 Caminos.
Oh,
Actually,
nice.
a previous episode actually, it'll be called "The Man in the Blue Blazer."
Brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll link you to it.
Yeah.
Um, and so this is your time now. So you got the Camino. So you're going to do Iraqi Kurdistan next year, which
Yeah.
I'm sure. And where can we follow those?
So I use Instagram mostly. It's just at George Kefford. And no underspaces, no capitals or anything. That's where I post most of my things. On that, you'll be able to get the link to my website. And on my website, you can find all of my previous adventures, and I might do a blog post every odd now and then, and other projects that I'm doing, like starting to walk sort of around the Mediterranean with like little long weekends and stuff like that. Um, and yeah, so those are the two major platforms that I use. My book is on Amazon. If you just type in "Walking the Holy Lands," it doesn't cost too much. I think an e-version will cost, I think, £3 or £4. And that's about it.
Can I get a signed copy?
Yes, I've got signed copies. I've got about 40 signed copies at home.
Lovely.
Yeah, so
That's
over.
brilliant. Lovely. Right. Well, thank you, man. I really, really enjoyed this. Everyone go get following George. He's really inspirational, travel inspirational to young and old. To just say that let's go out and do it. Brilliant. And thank you so much. Thank you so much. I
Thanks
really,
so much
really
for having me. I really enjoyed it.
no problem. And stopping recording in 3,